Hello everyone, I'm talking to you from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland in Australia, and hello, lovely smiles. I'm originally from Sweden, so I moved to Australia about 20 years ago, and I've been working as an airline pilot for 17 years. My story, and I was made months ago now during the COVID pandemic. So I've gone through a little bit of a transformational journey and done a lot of reflecting, I guess, over the last few months. And I've been feeling very excited about the prospect of a new future as well for myself. And I've looked into quite a bit about where that comes from, how I could feel so hopeful in a situation that wasn't really so great. So that's what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today. I was about 4 months into my flying training. It was a boarding school situation, and in my class was 7 guys and I. It was on an Air Force base, so we were doing civilian training, but it was on an Air Force base, so all the Air Force guys were around as well. And we spent a lot of time together, the 8 of us in my class. We went to class together, we studied together, we exercised together, we took turns cooking meals, so we ate together every day. And there was a lot of, I guess, rubbing. And 4 months in, a certain jargon had developed. It had become a little bit unpleasant for me, and I felt for the others as well. It was rude and it was crude, and I had had enough. So one day after dinner, I just told them. I spilled my guts and I said, this has to stop. This is unpleasant. I'm sure it's not just unpleasant for me, but for you too. This is not who you are. This is not who you were when you came in. You were educated, nice, well-spoken gentlemen, and now you've turned into this. And I've earned my place to be here as well. I won't stand for this kind of environment. And you're not going to elbow me out. I'm here to stay. So just pull your socks up and get your act together. And as I was saying that, all that frustration came out in tears. Of course, it wasn't what I wanted to do in a situation like that when I was claiming my spot in that environment. No one said anything. No one opposed me. No one contradicted me. And no one tried to defend themselves. The next day, each of them came up to me, and they didn't just apologize. They also said, thank you. We deserved that. We didn't like it either. We appreciate it. And over time, not only them, but some of the Air Force guys came over to me as well and said, wow, good on you. That took guts to say that. Well done. And months on even, I met some of the friends from their hometowns, and they said, we've heard about you. That was really courageous what you did. Well done. You know, I didn't think much of that at the time. I just did what I had to do. But I realized in hindsight that that situation gave me some tools that I've used throughout my life. It validated that I did have a place in that very male arena. I claimed it and I deserved it. And it gave me the strength to be my own advocate, I guess. And I could do it by just being me. So I went on to commercial aviation, and I've spent about 17 years there. in that 17 years, the amount of time, if I add it up, the amount of time that I've worked with another woman, it adds up to about 1 week. So I've been the only woman in the room a lot of times. That's not something I set out to do. I didn't want to be a trailblazer. I didn't need to stand up or stand out. I didn't have a point to prove. I just wanted to fly, and those were the numbers. And I did not let that deter me. When I applied to come into this flying school at the Air Force Base, there were lots of tests and interviews to do. And I found that whole process very interesting. Years later, when the same interviewers came back to do a follow-up interview, I asked them about those tests, and they said to me, you know, after you'd been there, we always had to have a big collegiate meeting about your results because there weren't enough women to compare the results with, and your results stood out so much compared to the men. So how was I so different? How would I know? I've only ever been me. And in my view, my work situation has always been very, very homogeneous. It's been practically all male. There's been no concessions to be made because none were needed. I don't see the pilot job or the cockpit environment as gender specific in any way. So I really was just one of the gang, and that worked really well. I wonder though if it's been different for me than to my male colleagues in another way. When all the piloting stuff of a flight is done, there's normally time to sit and chat. And in my cockpit, we always ended up chatting about life, about family, about children, and we had some really nice and genuine conversations. One day I remember I was on my way to work and I ran into another colleague. He said, "Who are you flying with today?" Because we always worked with new people. And I said the name. I said, "I don't know this guy at all. I've never met him." So my colleague said, "Oh, just a little heads up. He has just gone through a really nasty divorce, so don't ask about his family. He is bitter and angry." So I got to the aircraft and met this captain, and we did what we needed to do. And when we had time to talk, he said to me with a big sigh, "So I've just gone through a divorce." And he told me about how he missed his children, about his sadness for breaking up the family. And there was no bitterness and no anger. It was only sadness and vulnerability. And I talked about this to another male colleague of mine once, what my workday looked like and sounded like. And he said to me, "Wow, it's like we're not even working at the same place. When I go to work, it is just a pissing contest." I don't know if the captains I flew with were on the very best behavior when they worked with me, or if it was a nice break for them too, to not be part of the pissing contest that day. But we always ended up in really nice, genuine conversations. Now, I'm not the only pilot, the only female pilot there is. There are other pilots as well, of course. And even though it's a small group, and there's certainly a sisterhood, we are just as similar and as different as any group of colleagues. And when I go traveling and I see a female pilot in the terminal, do you know what I do? I stare. I go, "Look at that, a female pilot. Is that what they look like? Is that what I look like? How do I feel about that?" I'm going to tell you one time when it really became apparent to me that we are similar and different at the same time. My company brought out a new uniform, and they had the uniform on display for a few weeks so we can give in feedback on it. And I got an email from one of my female colleagues saying, listen, I see that they want to give us scarves. We have to tell them that we're not going to be doled out in scarves. We want a tie just like all the other guys because we are just one of them. And I replied, I said, I agree with you. We are just one of them. We are just one of the gang. But I think it's brilliant that they're finally bringing out a uniform for us and acknowledging that we are women. And it's practical and stylish and just a little bit feminine. So I was all for it. And in the end, we had the option of wearing either. But it really brought home that we were of the exact same position, but had completely different viewpoints. And I guess at the end of the day, I've never been interested in labels anyway. I don't think it's important what we are. It's who we are and how we turn up. That's interesting and that's important. When I've looked back now over my life and my career and how I have gone through this redundancy pretty unscathed, I see a lot of opposites in my life that have worked to my advantage. And I think that others people can benefit from that too. From that first situation when I felt so weak, crying in front of that very, very tense, in that very tense moment in front of my classmates, it turned out that people came and commended me for it and thanked me for being strong. That was so the opposite of what I felt in that situation. Well, the interviews and tests that I've gone through, it turns out that it was the moments when I was able to sit with a little bit of doubt and maybe hesitation before I answered that turned out to be the best interviews for me. It gave me space to be fully present and not just give a rehearsed answer, and also opened up for new solutions. And in this very, very male arena, where I've spent my career of the last 17 or 20 years, it turns out that just being me, turning up authentically each day, has brought warmth and softness, and I've been able to do it without feeling like I did myself an injustice, I guess. And all of these things I've learned are traits that build resilience. Leah was talking about gratitude. It's a huge part of resilience, and being able to be flexible and being present in the moment. And that's something I wish to all of you out there as well. Thank you.